It's a tough slate to talk about too, so this should be real fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I was already debating just firing off an Eric Blood, so don't want to be here.
Yeah, samesies. Took me an hour and 40 minutes to do the process this morning.
Oh, nice.
No. Yeah, now I'm doing it again. All righty. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, January 26th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by No House Advantage. 10-game slate coming up today after a 9-gamer on a Tuesday. We don't normally have a schedule like this, yet here we are. Tons to talk about. So first, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, did you end up finding any gold yesterday?
No, finished 9th in the big DraftKings tournament. Precious Achua killed that team, could have done a lot better, but that wasn't in any of my high stake stuff, so got absolutely wrecked.
All righty. Yeah, I know the feeling. It was a tough one yesterday. Just big time scores out of our boy Cade Cunningham, hanging a 69 burger on FanDuel. Don't know what he actually had on DraftKings, but I'm sure it was something in the neighborhood of that.
I think 69 also. Anthony
Edwards went absolutely crazy. Embiid went crazy. Just a wild night with a ton of value out there. It was a good one. It's looking like it could be the same thing today, but we have so much news that's just sort of like hanging in the ether. And we're going to touch on all of that as we work our way through the slate. But again, 10 games here. Have you registered for golf?
Yeah, I still need to build lineups, but I've registered.
All right, you're back to defend your crown this week. Good to know. If you run that one back, I assume that that we won't be doing a strategy show Monday of next week.
Yeah, I'm just going to, I guess, give notice now. If I win golf again, I'm not coming back.
Okay, there it is. That's totally reasonable. Well, let's talk a little basketball here. First game up on the slate, Milwaukee Bucks, 4.5-point favorites in Cleveland, 216.5 total. We have a couple things that we want to touch on first, including Adam turning his camera off. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. Now you're just half of you.
Yeah, it's not recognizing my camera anymore.
The only thing we've got is your chin down.
Right? Oh, I know. I see it. It's got
okay.
my laptop camera on, but it's not recognizing my. There we go.
Welcome back. Switching. I thought you were just switching to porn mode there for a second. Anyway, for Milwaukee, they're going to be without Grayson Allen, suspended today due to his foul on our boss, Alex Baker. No Brook Lopez, no Wes Matthews. Giannis is in. On the Cleveland side, no Lauri Markkanen. Q-tag on Jared Allen. Missed the game on Monday due to a non-COVID illness. We'll see what that means. We'll talk about Cleveland in a second. Not a lot to like here. Highest owned option for Milwaukee on DraftKings right now is Dante DiVincenzo at 4K. He's 4% owned. On the FanDuel side, Giannis getting a little bit of love, 13% owned at 11,200. Bobby Portis, 12% owned. Power forward center eligibility, 6,300. I agree with both ownerships on FanDuel, and I agree with the lack of ownership on DraftKings. I'm not entirely sure I'd be getting to much of anything from Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough matchup against Cleveland. Obviously, anytime you get to Giannis, that's fine. Getting to Bobby Portis is fine. He's 6,800, likely to play around 30 minutes. But yeah, there's just not really anything that truly stands out to me here.
No, Portis would be the guy I'd say that I quote unquote like the most. Giannis is the guy that I wouldn't bat an eye at to get in my lineups, but doesn't exactly feel like a Chris Middleton or Drew Holiday day. So I wish that I had more. Tough matchup against Cleveland too. Like I don't see it.
DiVincenzo is kind of interesting, but I assume we're going to get more value by the time, we talk about other games and then guys get ruled out during the day. Like he played 24 minutes last game. He's only 4K, but I assume there's just going to be better stuff.
Yep. We are on the same page here. It's, 216 total isn't a lot to write home about. Cleveland's defense is great. So I wish there was more to talk about here for Milwaukee, but there just isn't. Now, as we go to Cleveland, we do have the giant question mark hanging over our heads of Jared Allen's status. So he did not practice yesterday and wasn't at the facility at all. Normally, that would make me think that the person is not playing today. It's very different for an illness. There's no reason to come around if you are sick to shoot arounds or practices or whatever. If Jared Allen wakes up today and feels good, he's just going to play. We're not nursing an injury or anything. So I don't really know how to look at it other than I'm putting Jared Allen in. He's got another 9 hours to get fluids and stuff today and play this game. So who the hell knows? If he's in, Dean Wade, well, I assume we're assuming he's in because we do have Jared Allen projected for ownership on FanDuel. So Dean Wade, 14% projected ownership on DraftKings, where he's $100 above the minimum, just 3,100. I assume Dean Wade starts, but that doesn't even necessarily have to be the case. Evan Mobley is projected for 28% ownership on FanDuel at 6,900. I don't necessarily want that much Evan Mobley either. I find the Cleveland side to be very similar, other than the fact that Dean Wade's price is just too low for what he's probably doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like looking on DraftKings, 8,100 for Mobley, sure, but it's not anything I'm getting to frequently. Garland at 9,400, I never have an issue with. I mean, he's got very, very good rates without Sexton and Rubio. He's really good, but it's still a 10-game slate, and I would say he's probably correctly priced. Yeah. Wade's the only thing that really stands out, which is scary because Dean Wade sucks, but he played 35 minutes last game. Chetty only played 10 minutes. Even if he gets back to call it 28 to 30 minutes here at 3,100, it's not really about what he's doing. It's what he can open up in your lineup. That's just a ridiculously cheap price tag. So as a value piece,
Right. I love that Adam has essentially given up on the show already. Took about 5 minutes of actual talking before Adam says, I no longer want to do this show. I quit. Apparently he already won the golf tournament for this weekend. It just happened a couple of days early. So guess who's about to do the process show for the second time today, folks? That would be me. I am here. And whatever Adam was going to say, I'm sure that I was just going to say it better anyway. So I'm with him. Dean Wade, I've got him in for 28 minutes. He showed up in my Sims 14% of the time, and he's owned 14% of the time on DraftKings. To me, that is spot on. I don't have much else to add there. I do, though, really feel that Evan Mobley is a bit overowned on FanDuel, even at 6,900. He's very clearly the best option on the FanDuel side. I don't want to get to too much like Jared Allen is already $700 more expensive. They're basically the same guy on a per minute basis. Allen a little bit ahead of him. Kevin Love's pulling a little bit of ownership, but I still think that you need to see Jared Allen be out for Kevin Love to be at least a little bit more interesting. Although Kevin Love did all of his scoring in just 24 minutes. It's not like he got a real bump with Allen out the last time. Ultimately, I think it's Mobley on FanDuel that you can look at. I think it's Dean Wade on DraftKings that you can look at. Otherwise, doesn't really seem like the kind of day that you're getting to too much from Cleveland, or on the opposite side here from Milwaukee. Anxiously awaiting Adam's DM if he's able to send such a DM. I'm going to try to drag my feet. Oh, there he is. Welcome back. I just assumed you already won the golf contest.
So somebody said, I saw in chat, somebody said, can Adam tell us who just tells who wins the Farmers already? I guess that's the golf tournament. I don't even know the name of it.
Yeah, it is. It is indeed. Welcome back. Any final thoughts on Cleveland?
No, I think when I got cut out, I was just saying that, Dean Wade's not. Oh, I was saying pay attention to Dean Wade's ownership still, because even though he is a really good value, he's not the kind of guy that's very likely to score enough points that like you have to have him. He's a very different piece of chalk than, for example, your Nickeil Alexander-Walker was last night.
Correct. All righty. We'll keep it moving then. Charlotte at Indiana. This is where it gets a little complicated for us. I'm curious to get your thoughts. I don't know if you'll have any other thoughts. That I think we're going to be on the same page. Charlotte's on a back-to-back. We still have no Jalen McDaniels. Gordon Hayward missed the front end of the back-to-back. We have no concept of what his status is here. He missed the previous game as well. I left him out for right now. It's an actual injury to a foot that he's had lower body injuries in the past. Seems weird that you would play a back-to-back road set, sit the front and play the back. Like, you're not really getting the same sort of treatment as you would if you were home. So I left Hayward out, which means that I have a lot that I want to get to from Charlotte. LaMelo Ball across both sites, primarily FanDuel. Cody Martin is the flat minimum 3,500 on FanDuel. I think Miles Bridges is actually underrepresented on both FanDuel and DraftKings at 8,100 and 8,200. And then so long as PJ Washington doesn't get ejected immediately, you should feel pretty fresh for this one. He's probably the best play on Charlotte on either site. So how are you approaching this game as of right now? The Hayward news isn't all that important since it's a 7:00 start, but do you have a lean, and what else do you like?
I mean, I think I agree with you. If I had to guess, which I don't really care because it's a 7:00 start, but I would lean the same way you're leaning, that he probably just doesn't go because it's Gordon Hayward. But if he's out, I think it does. We talked about it yesterday, but it solidifies those minutes for PJ Washington as long as he doesn't get in a fight right out of the gate. It should give you more minutes for guys like Rozier and Oubre and Bridges and Martin. Like, all of those guys just benefit across the board as far as their playing time goes. It's not that you're getting a ton of production necessarily opened up. Hayward is a low enough usage guy on this team that it's still pretty replaceable. So I don't look at it as like a massive production bump for any of these guys, but just expecting more minutes from them is nice. PJ Washington, again, I think is where I'll get to the most, just because the 2 games ago with Hayward out, you saw 31 minutes from him. You should see some of him alongside Plumlee here. So 4,700 looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm happy to go those directions. And like I said, Cody Martin unique on FanDuel for still being the flat minimum. So you want to see Hayward be out to really utilize Martin as a pay down option. Rozier's the only guy that I don't have like a ton of interest in. He's not pulling any ownership, which I guess makes him slightly more interesting in GVPs, but I do think that he is mildly overpriced. Do you get to any Plumlee? Doesn't really feel like there's just too many centers.
Right. I'll say that's probably going to be the issue. You don't want to read too much into his playing time yesterday either, obviously. He played 32 minutes, but you mostly didn't have PJ Washington. I still think that there's a chance that you get, like one of the potential rotations the Hornets could run is that you get Plumlee playing 26, 28 minutes, and you get Washington just playing like 6 or 8 minutes alongside of him. That's certainly possible, but on a slate of this size, I kind of doubt that I'm going to be too enamored with even 28 minutes of Mason Plumlee at center.
Yep, we're on the same page there. Your preference is PJ Washington, assuming Gordon Hayward is out?
Yep.
All righty. Anything else you want to touch on here for Charlotte then?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. On the Indiana side, it's back to business with the same guys out that we saw last time. No Malcolm Brogdon, no Domantas Sabonis, no Miles Turner, no TJ McConnell, obviously still no TJ Warren. LeVert and Goga, both, call it 17% owned on FanDuel. For the most part, I agree with that. I like the LeVert price a little bit more than I like Goga. And then on DraftKings, no one's really getting any ownership. Torrey Craig and Jeremy Lamb are both at 7%. Those are the highest numbers. I don't really have any priorities on the DK side. I think I actually like LeVert the most of anybody on DK, even at 8,600, but no real priorities on DK. LeVert and Goga Batadze are my priorities on FanDuel. Thought Indiana would look a little bit better taking on Charlotte, but they just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked him a little more than the field. LeVert, 8,600. I know he didn't come through the other day, but still massive rates without Sabonis or Brogdon on the floor. 31.5% usage, 32.5% assist percentage. I will take my chances there against Charlotte. Goga, if he starts, I think looks good at 6,500. Last game, you got a very weird rotation because for one, he did not start the second half. For two, he dealt with foul trouble. So you lost playing time in the first quarter. You lost playing time in the second quarter. You lost playing time when he did sub back in the third quarter. I'm just viewing it as if Goga starts, you're likely to get 30 plus minutes. If he comes off the bench, I'm not paying 6,500 for him. It's pretty easy, I think, to view it that way. So I like him, but LeVert really stands out to me. Duarte is getting expensive on DraftKings. Craig's getting expensive. But like if you want to take shots at 4,400 Lamb or $4,200 Brissett, I think they're okay. But I would say Levert and Goga are the only things that I truly really like.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. They are the two guys that grade out the best for me. Just I look at center, I see how inundated we are with potential center options. There's no there's no McGee for Phoenix, so we've got Biyombo. There's no Gobert, so we've got Whiteside tonight. All of the other power forward center type options that are available today. And I mean, for this particular matchup, if we don't think Mason Plumlee's playing a ton, wouldn't surprise me to see more O'Shea Brissett play center instead of Goga. So I find the DraftKings side of this one to be wildly less interesting than I actually expected it to be when I first looked at it. Because with all those guys out and a matchup against Charlotte, I was like, oh, there's going to be mad value here for Indiana. And it just seems like everybody's sort of priced appropriately.
Yeah. And also for anyone who like is shying away from LeVert because he struggled last game. I mean, for one, he still had 38 DraftKings points, but he shot the ball 21 times and he made 8 of them. But you had 6 rebounds, you had 8 assists. I mean, if he just, and obviously with LeVert, you have efficiency issues, as we have talked about many, many times on this show. But
wait, he's got efficiency problems? I thought he just scored every time he shot.
Yeah, I mean, basically you can get a top 40 NBA player that is going to shoot 20 plus times for 8,600 against Charlotte.
It's almost like we know that he can take all of those shots, but he doesn't make nearly enough of them to be good.
But yeah, so I mean, I think it's one of those where I don't want to call 38 his floor game. Like he absolutely could do worse, but that was pretty damn close to a floor game last time out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's all I've got for Indiana. So let's talk a little bit about schedule for the rest of the day. We've got the NFL strategy show coming up at 11 a.m. So immediately after this one, the Jock Market NBA show at 1. We've got NHL strategy at 2. We've got the Yahoo NBA show at 4. Adam will be back for the deeper dive at 4:45. And then we've got live before lock at 6 p.m. NBA ownership projections are free. PGA top golfers are free, and NHL ownership projections free. Lots of good free tools for today. We move it on to the LA Clippers, 1-point favorites in Orlando. This one will be mildly difficult to talk about. We saw Marcus Morris get scratched pretty late yesterday for personal reasons. I put him back in. I have no idea what else to do.
Yeah, that one's tough because wasn't he missing the games he missed recently? Weren't those personal reasons too?
I'm not entirely sure. That sounds right. I mean, I don't remember where they played yesterday, but it wasn't close to Orlando today. So there is some travel. It's the away back to back. I just don't know what he's doing or what's going on. So no way for us to know. 7:00 start, so who cares?
Getting depositions for his brother's lawsuit against Jokic.
Yeah, incredible. So I've got him in. I don't know how much it matters. Highest owned guy on the DraftKings side is still Terrence Mann at 8%. If Morris happens to be out, Terrence Mann's going to look pretty good. He started yesterday in place of Morris, and 3,700 would be a decent price tag. But once again, like to me, no real priorities on the Clippers. I like actually Marcus Morris a little bit if he does play on FanDuel at 5,500. Maybe a little Reggie Jackson, but this Clippers team looks underwhelming.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to yesterday, where if Morris is in, there's just not really much at all I'm interested in. They have so many guys in the rotation right now. And then if Morris is out, it makes them look a little bit better. Like you get more usage for Reggie Jackson. You get more minutes for Mann. You could get more minutes for Kennard. But also keep in mind, you don't want to take too much away from yesterday's game because they essentially decided at halftime that the game was over and they weren't going to play anymore. And then they came back and beat the Wizards. But you got zero Reggie Jackson in the second half. You got no Nick Batum in the second half. You can't look too much into those rotations. Well, you can't look into those rotations at all. Like Luke Kennard, for example, first half plays 10 minutes. Second half sits like 2 minutes total. So, you definitely don't want to just be looking, oh, Morris is out, play Kennard kind of thing. Like, don't do that. It's Jackson looks better. The minutes for guys like Mann and Coffee look better. Production still, very up in the air. Zubats looks fine, but again, there's so many centers.
Yeah, it's just a pretty bleak team. If Marcus Morris happens to be out, opens up a little bit. if Batum happens to be out today on a back-to-back, like, we can maybe start to really open up a little bit additional playing time, but it doesn't appear to me that the Clippers look all that interesting. On the Orlando side, it's sort of what we've had pretty regularly as of late. Gary Harris and Terrence Ross are both off of the injury report. Mo Bamba is questionable with a right ankle sprain. No Fultz, no Isaac, no Hampton, no MCW, no Etuan Moore. Cole Anthony is 5,300 on FanDuel today. That price is incredibly stupid. He's 46% owned, and I completely agree with it. I don't even mind getting to him at 6,700 on DraftKings. We've got Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs, both around 15% owned on DK. And I actually think that if Mo Bamba plays, he's mildly interested in the mid fives. How do you want to handle Orlando? And I guess just to put a bow on it quickly, I assume you agree that Cole Anthony is one of the best plays on FanDuel at 5,300.
Yeah, just absurd price. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy in his games with Suggs active this year. He's averaged 32.5 minutes per game in those games. It's kind of just very easy math when someone projects, like when their median projection is like 6 to 6.5 times their salary, they're a good play. But he looks good on DraftKings too. 6,700, still plenty of upside there. He looks like the top option to me on DraftKings. If you want to get to some Suggs, some Franz Wagner, that's fine. I'm with you if Bamba's in. I expect him to play around 28 minutes. Makes him look okay at 5,400. Not like a priority at center, but he's at least someone that does give you massive upside thanks to his blocking ability and sometimes ability to knock down 7 threes in the first half. But, just plenty of volatility there, which is nice at that salary. But Anthony, the clear priority for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't even know how he gets to a $5,300 price tag on FanDuel.
Mixed him up with Carmelo.
That's a decent shout. I don't know what else it could possibly be. It's not like he's been out or like,
right.
There's no, I can't figure it out at all. So play all the Cole Anthony. He is to me an absolute lock in the cash game scenario on FanDuel as well. Otherwise it's Orlando and it's not all that appealing. 210 total. It's the second lowest total on the slate. Of these first 3 games, it hasn't been great. We don't exactly have a shit ton of plays that stand out as amazing at this point.
And somebody in chat said, has Anthony been in a slump? The answer is yes. He's played like shit since coming back from his ankle injury, basically. That explains why he's 6,700 on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Like, he would have to be playing with like literally a missing ankle to be worth 5,300 on FanDuel.
Last 30 days for Cole Anthony on FanDuel, 1 fantasy point per minute.
Yeah. What actually, I'm kind of interested. What was so he came back on January 5th.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's averaged 30.5 minutes per game in that time. So it's not like he's had some like dipped.
Yeah, no, the minutes have been there. He's just played like he doesn't belong in the NBA. But like you can only, when it's somebody coming back from an injury, I think you can put a little bit more stock into that, but you still don't want to just treat it like he's horrible. And still 1.02 DraftKings points per minute, 25% usage rate, 29% assist percentage, 42.9% true shooting. Basically, that's just telling you like he can continue to shoot like he doesn't belong in the NBA, and he's going to be a good play at this price. For the season, he has a 51.6% true shooting percentage. Sooner than later, he's going to get back to that and just be the easiest play in the world at this salary.
Yep. All right, let's keep it moving to the Sacramento Kings, another team that we basically cannot talk about at this point. They are also on a back-to-back. De'Aaron Fox did not play yesterday. Chimezie Metu did not play yesterday. Terrence Davis left the game early with, let's call it a concussion. We don't know that. I thought he had a head contusion.
He banged his head on the floor, but he actually left the game with a wrist injury.
Okay. Well, the head injury was more scary for me from is this guy going to play today? But either way, Terrence Davis, not healthy. We have no idea the status on Fox today, on Metu today, on Terrence Davis. No clue whatsoever. I don't really know what we can do to break this game down. Fox's price went up on DraftKings. He's at 8,200 now. So after sitting yesterday's front end of a back-to-back, I believe his price rose $900. Don't know how that's possible, but whatever. I can't figure any of this out. The easiest thing that we can say is this. $4,500 Rashawn Holmes looks like the best play on Sacramento for right now. And I don't know what really changes because we have to wait on like 90 minutes worth of playing time.
Yeah, exactly. The way I see it right now, I mean, I did search on Twitter because I was starting to think I had lost my mind. But Alvin Gentry says Terrence Davis suffered a wrist injury and that he was icing it after the game. He doesn't know anything more than that.
Okay.
Um, if Fox is in, his salary jumped $900 on DraftKings. He's always playable in tournaments, but 8,200 is kind of, I think, just a tough spot to get to. If he's out, Halliburton at 7,500 looks good. The only guy that I think really looks good no matter what is Rashawn Holmes, sitting at $4,500 still. He played about 23 or 24 minutes last night, but that was in three quarters. They got absolutely stomped by the Celtics.
Yeah.
No real reason to think he wasn't going to get 26 to 28 minutes at least if that game had been competitive. Good chance, I think, that, assuming they don't rest him on a back-to-back or anything, assuming he's in the starting lineup, I expect him to play 26 to 28 here and look pretty good at 4,500.
If Fox, Metu, and Davis happen to all be out again today, we're playing Halliburton, we're playing Hield, probably playing a little Davion Mitchell. Anything else really like immediately? Like, do we get to anything with actual priority?
I mean, the priorities I think are Halliburton and Holmes if Fox is out. If Fox is in, I think it's just Holmes. Guys like Hield, Mitchell, Bagley all look better if those guys are out. I mean, if Davis is out, that opens up even more minutes. But like they look better for sure. But I still don't know that I would call them priorities because they're not really cheap. I mean, Hield at 6,400 is overpriced for his normal role and production.
Yeah.
So if you take out Fox, you take out Davis, maybe he probably plays, mid 30s, but you still need him to actually shoot the ball and then make those shots too. Davion Mitchell at 4,400, he can get mid to upper 20s potentially in minutes, but it's not like he's a great point per minute guy. So they would look better for sure. But I think Halliburton with his near 40% assist percentage without Fox on the floor, and then Holmes just being himself at 4,500 are the two that would really stand out.
Hield 5,200 on FanDuel, a little bit more appealing there if he has to get a couple extra minutes.
Yeah, if Davis and Fox are both out, there it's like, okay, that's like a correct price for Hield's normal role. Yeah. So once you take those guys out, it just looks very good. On DraftKings, his price for his normal role, it's just like, I don't know how you possibly even get to him.
Tough to talk about for Sacramento. Just keep your eyes peeled. A lot of these teams on the back-to-backs with injury issues, we just sort of have to wait until middle of the afternoon to at least get a little bit of a trail of breadcrumbs. Atlanta, that's a team that we can talk about, although they are also still confusing for today. We have Bogdan Bogdanovic back after missing a couple days. DeAndre Hunter, unfortunately, is questionable in this one. Trae Young is 14% owned on FanDuel. The next highest guy in this game is Trae Young on DraftKings at 6. The third highest guy is 1.9% owned John Collins. Are we rostering anyone from Atlanta that isn't Trae Young?
Capella and Collins are fine, but they don't stand out as priorities. It's more so, low owned, high upside options. It is a very good matchup against Sacramento. The price tags aren't bad. If you're going to get 30-ish minutes from Capella, he certainly can do well at 7,100. Doesn't project great, but Collins, probably playing 30 to 32. They give you nice ceilings, but I think pretty much priced where they should be.
I think we're on the same page there. Yeah, are Capella and Okongwu just basically splitting all of the center minutes now? Is John Collins just the starting four of this team, and that's it?
I mean, that's mostly what they did last game. You still got a few. You got a few John Collins center minutes. Like Capella played about 26. Okongwu played 16. So you got, 6 from Collins?
The game before that, Okongwu and Capella played alongside each other for a bit.
That's weird.
Yeah. Okongwu played 25.4 minutes. Capella played 25.7. So there's also that. Atlanta just doesn't look very good, which is crazy in a matchup against Sacramento. How bad are these first 4 games for all intents and purposes?
Yeah, they're not great.
No, they aren't. All right, I'm going to hit you with this question just because I want to ask it. I'm assuming you saw it in chat. It's a non-DFS question.
Jokic.
Would you rather have Embiid or Jokic? It's Jokic for you?
Yeah.
It's Jokic for me as well. I wouldn't be mad about either answer there.
No.
I would rather bet on health.
I would give up every player on the Wizards for either one of them.
Well, sure. That's not a huge, not a huge leap. Yeah, it's a health thing for me. Like if Embiid had never really had all of the creaky lower body stuff. I think it'd be really close just because of the defense, but it's Jokic for me.
It's also, I mean, as well as Embiid's playing, like, cool, we're seeing him do this for a month. Like, he's basically doing for a month what Jokic just does every time he's on the floor.
For at least the last, year and a half?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
What's the age difference?
It's probably pretty close, actually.
Jokic is 26. Yeah, Jokic is 26 and Embiid's 27.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, you ready for what could be the worst game on the slate? It just so happens that maybe we can get one or two guys here. The New York Knicks are 6-point dogs in Miami. 201 total in this one. That's 9 points lower than the next closest game and significantly more next to everything else. On the Knicks side, complicated nature here for this team. Q tag on Mitchell Robinson, Q tag on Nerlens Noel. We know what we're doing here with the center, so it doesn't really make much of a difference which guy's in or out. Plus, this matchup sucks. RJ Barrett at 6,400 on FanDuel is pulling 15% ownership. Surely that makes some sense to me. And Randall at 8,600 also works. I don't think that there's a single Knick I would actually even be okay with rostering on DraftKings.
I'd be very surprised on DraftKings if I get a Knick in my lineup, except for like maybe a Julius Randle lineup out of like 150. Like,
yep.
They look. This isn't even like the Clippers the other day where it was just like they look bad. I don't really get there. This is like I don't know how to make their projections ever show up in lineups.
They actively look worse than any team I've ever projected this season.
Yeah, it's bad. Like I didn't know the color coding got this red.
Yeah. Like I have Julius Randle. If he plays his 36 minutes and hits his ceiling, he's still 9.5 points shy of the target score I want at 9,500. That's essentially unplayable, even if things go as perfect as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Brutal, dude. Brutal. RJ Barrett, 6,400 on FanDuel. That is a fully functional price tag and still not a guy that I think you should be getting to all that frequently. I don't know. I'm sure you didn't see this. When Alec Burks is the guy that brings the ball up the floor for the Knicks, they are like unquestionably the slowest team in the league because of it. They basically have no transition offense because they don't have a point guard. So maybe that's why they're not great this year.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah.
How much better is it with Kemba?
The only thing I saw was just like the Burks reference point. Like it takes them like 19 seconds to get a shot or something stupid, which is like truly bad. Is there any value in $4,800 Kemba on FanDuel?
I mean, he's probably going to play, 28 minutes or so?
That's a great question. I gave him 26, at which point the answer is basically no.
Yeah, I mean, he played 20 last game.
Yeah.
If he plays the fourth, you're probably getting, I guess, like 26. I don't know. I mean, tournament dart throw, I guess. I wouldn't have any confidence there, though.
Perfect. We'll go to the Miami side then. Luckily, at least on the Miami side, they've got some guys out that makes it a little bit easier. No Kyle Lowry, obviously no Victor Oladipo, Markieff Morris, KZ Okpala. Tyler Hero is back. So no Lowry helps. Jimmy Butler is 8,700 on FanDuel, 8,500 on DraftKings. Based on those price tags, we can actually get to Jimmy Butler. He's 15 to 20% owned. And for the most part, I agree with it. Bam is 13% owned on FanDuel. He's got power forward center eligibility, 7,700. I'm cool with that. Tyler Hero's not getting any ownership. I think he should. 6,600 at 1.8% ownership. I'll take that flyer given the 30% usage this year. I don't like anything really in this game, but at the very least, Butler, Hero, and Bam can be played.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. Like, it's just going to be a dreadfully slow game, you would think. But there is at least upside at these prices for Butler, Bam, and Hero. Hero should play 32 minutes or so, probably have around a 30% usage rate, like you said. Bam plays 32 to 33 minutes. Butler probably plays around 36. 5 games this year without Lowry and with Bam and Butler active. Butler's at 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. Bam is at 1.19 DraftKings points per minute. Hero's only played 2 of those games. 1.06 DraftKings points per minute, 31% usage rate. So, still not a very appealing game. But I think Butler at 8,500 looks like the top guy to me from this game and this team. Bam and Hero both look fine as well.
By the way, per my pace metric, this is the slowest team in the league taking on the second slowest team in the league, Knicks versus Heat. not usually a hotbed for fantasy points.
Yeah, completely agree with Anthony Marcus in chat. This game is going to 3 overtimes.
Yeah. Look at us. Anthony Marcus saying something we agree with. Who could have seen this one coming? Anything else for Miami?
Nope.
All righty.
This is going to be one of those games where, like, you look at the score, you're like, okay, oh yeah, I didn't play anybody from the Knicks. I didn't play, I barely played Miami. And you see the score at like halftime is like 38-32, and you're like, okay, I'm safe. And then you look and it's like, oh, Jimmy Butler has more points than the entire Miami Heat. Like more fantasy points, I mean.
Sure. All right. No House Advantage is the presenting sponsor of this show. If you use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up, you can get $25 on your first deposit. We're talking about picking player props, but you're ranking them on a confidence interval. We've got big prize pools, mass entry. We have No House Advantage projections and No House Advantage optimal lineups free on Awesemo.com to really help you out and take down some of these prize pools. And on a day like today, with so many teams on back-to-backs and so many teams with questionable guys that we don't know are playing, I'm thinking we're going to see a lot of interesting value on some of these guys. For example, like Terry Rozier has props here. Miles Bridges has props. LaMelo Ball. PJ Washington has some props here. If Gordon Hayward happens to be out, I think they're going to be low because they do have Gordon Hayward set up to be in. And we can do this for the Sacramento Kings as well. Got a couple different options here where it might free up a little bit of time. Like Tyrese Halliburton's over-under of 6.5 assists might look pretty good if De'Aaron Fox happens to be out. I'm going to hit Adam with one or two of these props, and we'll see what stands out most. How do you feel about 23.5 real points for James Harden today?
Where the hell is he? Yeah, there's
spoiler alert.
Yeah,
still
over.
no Kevin Durant. Still no Kyrie Irving.
Over.
Yeah, we're going straight back to James Harden in this one. Not really a situation where I would want to be doing something different. Who else can I hit you with now? How about, all right, our boy, Karis LeVert, 23.5 real points. That one's a tough one. It actually feels like an under to me.
Over.
Okay.
I think it's
like
close.
Feels like an over for you. Okay, that works. And then one final pick here for No House Advantage. Let's look at Jimmy Butler. 21.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, or 6.5 assists.
How many points?
21.5.
Under. And how many rebounds? How many assists?
6.5 on both there. I would actually probably look at that under in points.
I like I think for me, it's under points would be number one. Over assists, number two. Rebounds, okay. I think is about right.
All righty. Well, that's No House Advantage, everybody. Again, use that promo code Awesemo. Get $25 on that first deposit. We head to Denver now. Denver Nuggets, 1.5 point dogs in Brooklyn, 227 total. This one's going to be tricky. This is just the theme of the day. Just assume that we have no idea what's going on for most of these teams. Will Barton, questionable. He ended up being ruled out pretty late yesterday. That makes me think he's not playing today. It's not like he was on the injury report the entire day and they were like, oh, he can't make it out there. That one came out kind of late. So I left Will Barton out for right now. And if that is the case, Jokic, I don't know, 15 to 20% owned on FanDuel and DraftKings seems totally reasonable to me. DraftKings price might still be a little too high, but if we open up more value, we can get there. Monty Morris, probably my second favorite option here, and I use the term favorite pretty loosely. There's just nothing here for Denver.
I mean, Jokic, if Barton is out, I think looks very, very good. Just an even better fantasy guy than normal. The price and the position is still tough, but I think if Barton is out, he becomes more of a priority for me. If Barton's in, he still looks very good, just a little bit more difficult to get to. I'm with you. Morris looks okay at 4,600, looks better if Barton is out. Gordon's already priced up to 6,500, so that makes it pretty tough. The bench didn't really give us anything yesterday. Like, now that you have Bryn Forbes in that rotation, you just didn't get more than 19 minutes from any of the bench guys for Denver, which makes it so, pretty tough to take shots at the Campazzo, Bones Highland type guys when they're not really playing.
Yeah, this one's just tricky. It's Jokic and basically nothing else.
Yeah, how many games do we have now without Barton?
Gotta be a decent amount.
It's a decent number.
Yeah.
Jokic has played 6 games now without Barton and without Porter. 1.96 DraftKings points per minute, 33.2% usage percentage, so a slight bump there. 49.9% assist percentage. If you just look at his numbers for the season without Barton or Porter on the floor, his assist percentage I think is like 40 or 41%.
Yeah, I got him in for 42 right now, which feels about right.
Monte Morris in those 6 games, 1.03 DraftKings points per minute in 31.7 minutes per game.
Yeah, he's the only other guy that I'd be looking to really get here from Denver. Aaron Gordon's basically just priced appropriately. So another team where it's just like not good.
384 total minutes for Jokic this year without Barton or Porter on the floor. 41.1% assist percentage, 32.9% usage rate, 1.87 DraftKings points per minute.
Yeah, I got him in right now for 1.8 DK points per minute. Feels about right here. Decent matchup too against Brooklyn. And yet here we are moving to Brooklyn where we're running it back with James Harden. That's for sure. 10-2 on FanDuel, 11-5 on DraftKings. He's 43% owned on FanDuel, 22 on DK. I think James Harden is, again, the best pay up option you're going to find today. He's just a significantly better guy when there's no Kevin Durant, no Kyrie. Do you have anything you want to add here on Harden?
No, just, plays a lot of minutes, 1.6 fantasy point per minute guy without them on the floor. Not quite as expensive as Jokic, at a slightly better position. Still, the only, I guess, negative is he'd be more valuable if he was point guard, shooting guard, or point guard, small forward, or something. But
if he were Patty Mills.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, still looks great at 11.5. I will say, like yesterday we saw it, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see it again too. In like I think the $15 on DraftKings, it was like 19% ownership to Jokic, 36 to Harden. In higher stakes, it was like 48 to Harden, I think like 24 to Jokic. So you got more to Jokic, but more to Harden as well. I don't think there should be a 2-to-1 gap. If Barton is out, I don't think there should be a 2-to-1 gap between these two. If Barton is in, I think that makes it closer to right. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're closer than the ownership might play out.
I'm not sure I agree, but I don't mind if I ever get more Jokic.
I mean, I guess it still comes back to having Whiteside, having Biyombo.
Yeah, there are some center options that are full stop unavoidable today at valuable spots. It's just so much easier to get to Harden and a good valued center than it is to get to Jokic and a good valued point guard.
Sure.
And that's really where it comes down, which plays a bigger question of like, am I more likely to win a GPP the opposite way? But like on the surface, it makes sense that they have that kind of gap. You would need, honestly, should Nikola Jokic be point guard center eligible?
Probably just be point guard.
They should give him every one of them. I mean, when you're the best scorer on the team while also being the best point guard and the best rebounder, can you just be allowed to just, like, you're a wild card, you're allowed to put him wherever you want?
Right.
I wouldn't be mad about it. Here's the thing, though. I think we're playing a lot more of Brooklyn than we have of basically every other team save for Charlotte here. Kessler Edwards is 17% owned on FanDuel, 7 on DraftKings. I'll happily get over that 7% number on DK. I think Patty Mills looks good. I think DeAndre Bembry could look good if he's playing the same sort of minutes he played yesterday. You could even sneak in Bruce Brown at 3,200 on DraftKings. We saw Day'Ron Sharpe start yesterday. I didn't even think he was going to play. I just assumed it was going to be Claxton, but they went to Sharpe, Aldridge, and Claxton.
Learning from the Wizards.
What'd you say?
They're learning from the Wizards how to run.
It was basically the same sort of situation. Sharpe started the first and third, didn't play much or didn't play at all after that. So
yeah, Sharpe became Gafford, Claxton became Bryant, Aldridge became Harrell, and they all suck.
Decent comps across the board there too. Like Aldridge, Harrell isn't. I mean, from a motor perspective, it's different, but like they do the same sort of things on the basketball court. How do you want to handle the rest of these guys? Mills, Edward, Bembry, Brown. None of them make you feel happy to have them.
No, but I am still interested in Mills. Has that point guard, small forward eligibility that we talked about. Still only 4,900. He played about 30 minutes yesterday, but total this year in the games with Harden and without the other two, he's averaged about 34 minutes per game. He's around a 0.85, 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. So still some value on Mills, I think. Especially, he's one of those guys where right now he looks better than he probably will by lock. Like as these guys that we've said we don't know if they're playing or not, as we find out they're not playing, Mills starts to just gradually look worse. But he's just a solid value at this price, I think. Edwards at 4,300 is okay, but not any sort of a priority for me.
Alrighty. Yeah, it's
Bembry playing 30 minutes yesterday was pretty surprising.
I know, and the problem is he could just as easily not start today, and it's
I mean, I still would expect him to start,
Cam
but
Thomas day.
he could very easily start and play 20 minutes.
Yep, it does complicate matters a bit. 8% owned, and that's like sort of how much I would want to have one way or the other. So I don't think it creates too big of an issue. But Brooklyn's probably like the second best team we've looked at this point, which is kind of crazy to think about. Well, stop me if you've heard this one before, but Toronto might be difficult to talk about. We got no Fred VanVleet relatively late in the day, and then even later than that, no Scotty Barnes. This team is obviously just a team you jam in those scenarios, and that worked out pretty well. I think we're doing it again today. I put both guys back in. I think the Fred VanVleet news was sort of just like, this feels like a decent day where we can give him some rest, and then the Barnes thing popped up out of nowhere. So I put both guys back in, at which point they're all the starters are going to play like 34 plus minutes. And I want to play Siakam, and I want to play a ton of Fred VanVleet, and I want to play Anunoby, and I want to play Trent, and I still want to play Barnes. And I don't know what else I could say.
Yeah, it's basically, if those guys are in, all the starters look good, at least to some extent. Siakam at 8,900 with power forward eligibility, still going to look good. VanVleet at 8,700 still looks solid. 5K for Gary Trent is a good price point. Anunoby and Barnes are fine. As you start ruling guys out, we've just seen what Toronto does at this point. The first guy that gets ruled out becomes Precious Achiuwa starting. He was disappointing yesterday, didn't play nearly as many minutes as he typically has been, only played about 25 minutes. That's definitely something to consider. You got just a much deeper, you got a lot more Watanabe than normal, you got a lot more Flynn than normal. Champagne got ejected. I think that basically became those two, but either way, like you got more Banton than normal. So that's at least somewhat concerning. But again, that was a game where you were down two guys. If Achiuwa starts, I think that you can still at least expect upper 20s from him. Like, I don't want to overreact too much to one game. He had averaged 35 minutes per game in his starts without Trent. So I don't want to just suddenly say, oh yeah, he's only playing 24 minutes. That's certainly possible. But at 3,800, it's still a kind of interesting, upside spot, because if he were to get to 32 to 34 minutes, he would look pretty good. Chris Boucher, like if one of these guys is out, there's a good chance that you're getting 30 minutes again from Boucher. He's another one. He started yesterday, only played 30 minutes, but you certainly could potentially see more. So the Raptors are going to look pretty good one way or the other. It's just a matter of who's starting, basically.
We're not going to know any of that, probably even at lock. So are you just going to assume everybody's in to start, barring any like injury report designation around noon?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Yeah, that's just, you got to play these guys because they're going to play so many damn minutes. It's insane. VanVleet will be my guy, though. I just think his price, the fact that he was 10K not too long ago and is now 8,700 or 8,500, it's appealing. Go Toronto.
Oh, and reminder that if VanVleet's out, Siakam has like a 30% assist percentage.
Yeah. On the Chicago side, we know that they're going to be without, God, I can never remember the Lonzo Ball. I have a hard time remembering which ball is which at this point. Thank God LiAngelo is not actually in the league, or it would be a real issue for me. No LaMelo. Sorry, no Lonzo. I talked that into existence, got it correct, and then ruined it again. No Ball, no Caruso, no Derek Jones. DeRozan and Vooch are back in. Tyler Cook is questionable. There's a little bit here, I guess we could like here from Chicago. DeMar looks fine at 8,200. He's 9K on FanDuel, but at least he has dual eligibility. Levine's still just 7,500 on FanDuel. I think we're definitely going to that price tag. Vooch is 8,800 on FanDuel. Seems okay. I think you could really get to at least a little bit of any one of the starters, but DeRozan and Levine seem like the two best options.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. DeRozan in particular, 8,200 on DraftKings, assuming he's back. He was only out for rest, so looks very good at 8,200 to me. 9,600 for Vooch is fine, but about where he should be. Levine, 8,300 is fine. He has shooting guard small forward eligibility, which makes him a little bit easier to get to. The Sunmu at 6,300 is very expensive. At some point, he should stop producing as well as he has been. Maybe he won't, but DeRozan's the one that really stands out to me.
I am on the same page as you for that one. Like Kobe White, 7,300 on DraftKings, can't do it. 5,800 on FanDuel, a little bit more interesting there. Vooch is just a tough sell. There's just so many different centers. This game could look a lot different as we get closer to lock. So keep your eyes peeled for the Toronto news as we get closer to lock. Next up, Memphis at San Antonio. We are cruising through this slate, by the way. We might get out of here pretty early.
Good. Got to go make some golf lineups.
There you go. Memphis, 3.5-point underdogs in San Antonio. On the Memphis side, Ja Morant is off the injury report. Desmond Bane, questionable, coming back from COVID. Brandon Clark, questionable, back soreness. Still no Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, or Tyus Jones. Ja, 9,900 on FanDuel, 9,900 on DraftKings, 20% owned on both, and he should be. It's a pace-up spot for Memphis against San Antonio. I think Ja very clearly, by like miles, is the best option from Memphis, although $4,500 Steven Adams is pulling 19% ownership on DK. Feels a little aggressive, but it's not that I think he's a bad play. He's probably, I think, the second best play from Memphis, but I don't know if he's my priority. Morant is.
Yeah, Morant looks great. Brooks out, just gives him a bump in usage. If Bane is out, even better. You can get more minutes. You get more everything from Morant. Makes him look very, very good one way or the other. Adams is fine at 4,500. I don't have any real issues there. He is at least, because the thing is, you do have, you mentioned Biyombo, you've mentioned Whiteside. Adams is at least cheaper than those guys. He's in that Rashawn Holmes territory. Holmes also getting similar ownership to Adams. So I could certainly see some lineups where they just, fit in pretty nicely. But certainly not excited about Steven Adams ceiling or anything.
No, not so much.
If Clark is out, he potentially looks a little bit better too in terms of playing time.
Yeah, definitely a couple extra minutes out there to go around. And then I think Jaren Jackson probably looks a little bit better at that $6,600 price tag. Is there any scenario where you're actually going to be interested in Bane, though? 6,700, 6,400 first game back, potentially. I gave him 30 minutes, felt about right.
Yeah, it kind of just seems like a difficult spot to get to. Like, I think I would still have him behind Morant, Adams, Jackson.
Okay. Anything else here we're missing from Memphis?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, it's really hard to find just guys that we can talk about that are actual good plays. I don't think we got to 10 total.
It's just one of those, like, the good plays are pretty clearly good plays, and then there's just not a lot of there's not a lot of like, oh yeah, take flyers on this guy because it's like, oh, that guy's $1,000 overpriced.
Right. For San Antonio, no K Bates Diop. He's going to be out for at least 4 more games. Josh Primo still with the G League. We got a team that we could talk about to roster here. 17% owned Murray on DK. White is 26%. Pirtle 23. Keldon Johnson 15. Vassell, McDermott, Walker, all about 10. A couple of those guys are north of 10 on FanDuel. Are the San Antonio Spurs the best team we've seen so far?
As a whole, yeah.
Yeah. What do you like the most then? I think my answer is Keldon Johnson, but I could pretty much go any direction, be happy.
I think Keldon might be my 4th guy here.
Okay.
But again, like not that I don't like him, but Pirtle at 6,200, I think looks great. Likely to give you 32 plus minutes if this game's competitive. Murray looks great, sub 10K now. Still, a 1.4 DraftKings point per minute guy, likely to play 35, 36 minutes here. Derek White at 5,900, I think is underpriced. I expect 32 minutes or so from him if this game's competitive. Keldon looks fine. Bates Diop being out matters to some extent because it helps solidify playing time for guys like Vassell and Lonnie Walker at pretty cheap price tags as well. So yeah, I like this team.
You and me both. It's hard not to. I mean, they're shrinking their rotation a little bit more, which is great to see. Like, they didn't really go to Landale yesterday. It was more Eubanks, and it wasn't even the full 48 between the two.
Yeah. The game before that, they had done the, first half Landale, second half Eubanks thing.
Yeah. Which, I don't really care who's getting, like, I'm not playing either one of them no matter what.
No,
that's
the reason
interesting thing.
The reason I care is because I think it's good for Pirtle when you see Popovich not really care about who the backup is. Because it's that thing we talk about a lot with centers, where if you have Andre Drummond behind you, typically you can only really play 32 or 33 minutes. Like when you had DeMarcus Cousins in Milwaukee, Bobby Portis could really only play 28, 30 minutes because they were going to get Cousins his, 16 or whatever. Yep. Once Popovich clearly doesn't have a preference between Landale and Eubanks, it kind of is just Pirtle, go play, and then I'll just throw one of these guys in there whenever you need to go to the bench.
Yep. Well, guys, it took us, I don't know, however many teams to get through. before we finally got to a San Antonio Spurs team that was interesting. So they play at 8:30. We won't know any news. Buckle up, because I'm sure something negative is going to happen to ruin all of this for San Antonio. Great matchup, though. Anything else for the Spurs?
Nope.
All right, 2 to go here. Next game up, 10 o'clock start. Dallas Mavericks, 4-point favorites in Portland, 216 total. And by all accounts, Dallas is looking similar to yesterday, except Tim Hardaway broke his foot, and he is going to be out for this one, which is going to free up minutes. I just don't know how much it matters, although there is still a lot of ownership coming into this one. Luka is 10% owned on DraftKings. So is Dorian Finney-Smith. Jalen Brunson is 20% owned on DK and 34% owned on FanDuel. Porzingis is about 10% owned. I guess we need to start with Brunson. Based on those ownership numbers, I think we're anticipating a pretty large bump for Brunson with Hardaway out.
I think it's also just the drop in salary, and he's just kind of easy to get into lineups. Still kind of concerning for me, though. I mean, he can play a few more minutes without Hardaway as well, but you do see a pretty big drop off in his production. He's played 20 games with Porzingis and Doncic both active this year. He's averaged 0.85 DraftKings points per minute. So, like, I get why he's popular. It's not a bad matchup against Portland. He's likely to give you, I would think, 34 minutes or so, 0.85 fantasy points per minute. He looks good. He's not someone that I'm super concerned about pivoting away from if I need to for ownership reasons, but I do understand, why he's getting ownership. I think he looks like a good value.
I think he's wildly over-owned, or at least he is for me. And he's a guy that I typically get to a lot in these sorts of situations. And I'm just not getting that sort of like appeal for him. I'm pulling the rates now of Tim Hardaway on or Tim Hardaway off, Brunson, Luka, and Porzingis all played in the game. So trying to get a decent cross-section for what happens if Brunson can be on the floor.
Here's how I see it basically is if you just take the rates from the 20 games he's played with Porzingis and Luka, like I don't care that much about Hardaway's rates because I think like he's not a super high usage guy in those conditions. He's not getting assists. I don't think he's giving really like Brunson's not picking anything up there, I don't think. But if you just take those rates and give him 34 minutes, I have him at 30 and a half DraftKings points, which at 5,700, like, yeah, he's going to get some ownership there. Probably also means that I can find lower owned guys that give me a similar range of outcomes.
Yeah, so if I gave him, add him at 32 minutes, I could happily bump him up there. I have no qualms with going to 34. I think he's probably my biggest negative leverage play on FanDuel if he's 34% owned. I don't see it. I don't see him getting that sort of, he's just a different, I mean, Luka is the actual problem here. Jalen Brunson is a completely different basketball player when Luka Doncic plays in comparison to not. I don't think Tim Hardaway is going to have that sort of impact, and I think that he is getting mildly overprojected for it for right now.
Yeah, like I think Hardaway being out is a minutes bump potentially for Brunson, and that's potentially, it doesn't have to be. But the reason that I say I don't think the rates go up, Hardaway's played 21 games with Porzingis and Luka this year. Hardaway has a 20.1% usage rate and an 8% assist percentage. Yeah. That's just not like it's the same rates as Brunson basically. Yeah, like you're not. It's like we were saying with Hayward earlier. Like when he goes out, you're talking about the minutes a lot more than the production because he's not vacating a ton of usage. He's basically just vacating like, oh yeah, I'll shoot the ball whenever everybody else is covered.
He's neutral.
Right. Yeah, like he's just going to be replaced pretty much by whatever else is in the lineup, like for his minutes.
Brunson's played 268 minutes with Tim Hardaway Jr. off in games where Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic all played. He's got a 19.3% usage rate. Like there's no bump there. So it's got to be a playing time thing. I'm getting away from 34% owned Jalen Brunson on FanDuel if that's the case. Still a good play. I understand that he can work his way into lineups. Make sure you're getting different elsewhere. To me, Luka's the best option for Dallas.
Yeah, I think this is the best Luka's looked in a while, but it's still tough to get there because of Harden.
Yep,
and because of Murray and Morant being over $1,000 less expensive.
Yeah, it's a tricky spot for Dallas today. On the Portland side, should be the same team that we saw yesterday. Portland is still going to be without Larry Nance, Damian Lillard, and Cody Zeller. So I'm projecting these guys basically the same. CJ McCollum, 7,300 on DraftKings again, to me looks still good. Nurk for 7,700 looks good. I've got at least a little bit of interest in 7K. Anthony Simons. There's not a ton here to like for Portland, but I don't mind getting to the starters.
Yeah, I mean, I still like $7,300 McCollum. His salary came down. He played 38 minutes yesterday. Assuming we don't get him ruled out on the second half of a back-to-back, I'm expecting him to once again play 37, 38 minutes. He's about a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy without Dame on the floor. Matchup isn't super appealing because Dallas is slow, but yeah, it's just a weirdly low price tag for McCollum without Lillard playing full minutes.
It really is. I don't totally understand it. Where do you land on the rest of these guys? Any interest in Covington or Nas Little? Little with a pretty monster game yesterday.
Not a ton. Norman Powell's status does matter. Like if he's starting, that's bad for most likely Little or Covington, one of the two. If he's out, that's good for the team as a whole because you're taking minutes and usage out of the lineup. McCollum's the guy that I like the most. Nurkic at 7,700 certainly fine. He's close enough in price to like Whiteside where, you're kind of just sacrificing like half a player somewhere else. So, if Nurkic handedly beats Whiteside, beats him by like 10 or something, you're probably going to be glad that you have Nurkic over him. So kind of interesting in tournaments, but McCollum's the guy that I like actively really want to get to here. I don't understand this price.
Give me both. He is very clearly my preferred option coming out of Portland.
He's not getting a ton of ownership either.
No. 12.7% is not all that much for me.
Yeah. And he has shooting guard eligibility, so he's not necessarily costing you the Harden, Morant, Murray, whatever combo you're trying to get to there.
Right. Alrighty. Final game. You ready?
Yep.
Phoenix Suns, 4-point favorites in Utah. Now, this one's wild. No Jay Crowder, no DeAndre Ayton, no Cam Payne, no Frank Kaminsky, no Abdel Nader, and no JaVale McGee, which means today is the day that Bismack Biyombo seems obvious and absolutely sucks. Yep. It's coming. Cam Johnson projected for 35% ownership on FanDuel. Not so sure I understand that. 50% ownership on DraftKings, 4,300. Again, I think that he's a really good play. I don't think he's a 50% owned play yet on this slate. Biyombo at 18% ownership on DraftKings at 5,500 seems totally reasonable. Not a ton of love going to Booker or Paul. Paul finally down from that 10-2 price tag on FanDuel down to 9,700. What do you like the most from Phoenix?
Cam Johnson.
Yeah, agreed. That one's easy.
He played 38 minutes last game. He's like a 0.8 to 0.85 fantasy point per minute guy. He's just wildly underpriced. If you want to say, like in some tournament lineups, if you want to say, okay, I'll take my chances, like Cam Johnson 6Xs gets 24 points, I can make that up somewhere, that's fine. But the problem is that Cam Johnson projects for like 30 plus, and that becomes very difficult to make up.
You think 38 minutes is where 36. You're probably landing here?
Yeah, okay. 36, somewhere in there.
I had him at 34. Should probably go a little bit higher, I guess. I don't know.
Even in 34, like you're probably talking around 30 DraftKings points there.
I got him at 28.5 for right now. I'm probably a little light for sure. 50% ownership just seemed crazy. 5K on FanDuel with just small forward. I don't see him as a 35% guy, but
yeah, I think it still makes him a very good play, but I do think that's just less appealing than like 4,300 small forward, power forward on DraftKings. Can he fail? Sure. But mostly you're looking at a guy that barring fights, ejections, foul trouble, injury, his bad games for the most part are just going to be games where you're just like, damn, wish I didn't have him at 50%, but I'm not drawing dead. And his good games are like, if you don't have him, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking for basically like 35 out of him on a day like today, at least as of right now. And that is not too far away from his median projection.
And a lot of it, I mean, obviously stuff's going to open up, but we've gotten to this point in the show. We're on the last game of the show, and there just haven't been guys where you're just like, oh, I really like that value. I really like that value. Like, what $4,300 guys are you really comparing him to? Because you can't say Steven Adams or Rashawn Holmes because their positions come with higher opportunity cost. It's basically like Cameron Johnson versus like Devin Vassell or something. If you're trying to find who's going to beat Cam Johnson and, stay in that price range, it's like the Devin Vassell type guys, which sure he can, but you're also expecting him to play like 10 minutes less. So you're walking a pretty fine line there.
All right, so that's Cam Johnson. I gave Biyombo 32 minutes. He seems solid, if not unspectacular.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Biyombo looks good. He's been He's been fantastic this year. I still don't really know what to do with that because we have a pretty long track record of Biyombo being like a serviceable but not great fantasy guy. And then this year he has just turned into a monster, 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. But assuming he plays 30 to 32 minutes, he's just going to look like a pretty solid option at 5,500.
Then we get to the rest of this Phoenix team. Is there value anywhere else? Are you going to Booker? Are you going to Paul? Are you going to Bridges? Are you going to Jalen Smith, potentially 3,600? Does he become a Bismack Biyombo pivot to you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not super confident in it, but he does have power forward eligibility, which is really nice. Like, you can make some really high upside lineups, and I emphasize upside because the floor is not going to be super high, but you can make some really high upside lineups by going, Whiteside plus Pirtle or Jokic or whoever at center, and then using Jalen Smith as a $3,600 power forward, saying my best guess is if Biyombo gets in foul trouble, Smith plays more. Certainly, I guess doesn't have to be the case, but would be surprised if it isn't. They're kind of out of centers, and they're also short on the wing, so I assume it would be him. And like if Smith one way or another gets 24 minutes as a $3,600 power forward, and then you're still able to use those center spots on high upside centers, like you're getting a massive ceiling that way. It's not safe, but I do like building some lineups like that. Booker and Paul, from a ceiling standpoint, look great. The issue that I think you're going to run into is just that they're very close in salary to guys like Morant and Murray that are just going to look better.
All righty. Is there anything else here you want to touch on from Phoenix?
Obviously, don't play Biyombo and Smith together.
Okay. Anything else here?
No, I'm just still nervous because I talked about Jalen Smith and I'm having flashbacks to the DNP. But I don't think that can happen here.
Doesn't seem super likely. Like
what's it look like if he does? Cameron Johnson's playing center and they're giving more minutes to like Landry Shamet?
Probably, right? Or Ish Wainwright, Alfred Payton types.
Yeah, you're starting to name guys where I'm just like Jalen Smith probably is ahead of them.
It doesn't make a ton of sense. It would probably look a little bit different if Utah were different today, but no Donovan Mitchell, no Rudy Gobert in this one. Everybody else will be available allegedly. So this team looks a bit different. And on DraftKings, they're not all that appealing. Whiteside 6,600. He's pulling 7% ownership. I like him more than that number. I like Rudy Gay a little bit more than the 5% ownership that he's getting. But on FanDuel, these guys are priced down. Whiteside 5,500. Yes, please. Conley's 14% owned. Jordan Clarkson's 18% owned. Jordan Clarkson's 5,600 on FanDuel today and 7,400 on DraftKings. Joe Ingles is 4K on FanDuel, 20% owned. I think you're playing a lot of Utah on the FanDuel side.
Yeah, the FanDuel prices sound really nice. DraftKings prices pretty much suck outside of Whiteside. Still very, very interested in him at 6,600. In his return last game, he started. He was basically like the only guy that played. He played 32 minutes. I take that as a very, very good sign. In his starts, he started 4 games now this season. He's averaged 30.5 minutes per game, 0.95 DraftKings points per minute. Fully expect that point per minute rate to come up. It's not like playing with the starters should hurt Whiteside over the long term. You also don't have Mitchell anyway. But for the season, Whiteside's at 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. I still think he looks really good. It's difficult for me to get to any of the rest of these guys, though, outside of just taking like tournament flyers on Bogdanovich or Clarkson or something.
Yeah, I thought they would look a little bit better on the DraftKings side. They just don't. So any final thoughts here for Utah?
Adam doesn't play Chris Paul. I play Chris Paul like constantly.
Nobody really knows anything that they're saying. So any final thoughts on this slate? Looks quite hard.
Yeah, I mean, pay attention to news. Hopefully we'll have more for the deeper dive and live before lock.
Well, that's where we're at, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this strategy show. If you hit the like button, that would help us out a ton. Tons of shows coming up throughout the rest of the day. Adam will be back for the injury report, GPP videos, and for the deeper dive. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow.